You're listening to the Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast, a place for sex addicts to share their experiences of recovery, to help break the stigma, myths, and misconceptions of sex addiction. This podcast may contain topics of sexuality, sexual trauma, dysfunction, or other things that may be triggering, so listener discretion is advised. Hello, and welcome to the Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast. My name is Jason, I'm a sex addict, and I will be your podcast host for today. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode number 22 of the podcast. Today, I'm happy to be sharing a conversation that I had with William P. So I met William on Zoom through the Noon groups over the past year. In this conversation, we not only talk about his story, but we also talked about the tools of recovery. Thinking about program tools, the ISO has put out a booklet called Tools of Recovery, a practical guide for new members of SAA. This booklet includes many different topics, including the 3 circles, prayer and meditation, slogans such as let go and let God, progress, not perfection, live and let live, one day at a time. And these are all fantastic program tools. One of the things that we did discuss in our conversation was about making phone calls. The seemingly 800-pound phone. There's a section in the booklet called Using the Telephone, and I wanted to read a paragraph out of that section, and I believe this is on page 8 in the PDF version, and I'm not sure in the paper version if it corresponds to the same page. The last paragraph of that section: carrying a list of phone numbers with us is beneficial because we never know when we will face a challenging situation. Sometimes we need to call people to help start our day. At other times, we may need to check in about current thoughts and behaviors. Some suggest calling 3 people every day in order to build and maintain a support system. The practice of making phone calls, even when you don't have any particular reason, will make it easier when you need support. If you're having a difficult day, consider using the phone to do service. Reach out to others who are newer in SAA or who are having a hard time. It can do wonders for your mood and your sobriety. So this is just one of the many sections of the Tools of Recovery booklet, and I'll be sure to leave a link in the show notes. It can be found on saa-recovery.org/literature and search for Tools of Recovery there. I'll leave a direct link in the show notes. So this booklet gives a whole lot of different ideas for different program tools that we can use. And using program tools is so beneficial for our recovery. Just a warning up front, in this conversation there is talk about death by suicide. At the end of the episode, I will be sharing information about the suicide phone line. Now I'd like to share the conversation that I had with William P. this week. Like the end of the last episode, my cat was making a lot of noise as we started recording, so you'll hear me make a comment here at the beginning. And without further ado, here it is. I hope you enjoy it. Speak of the devil, she's making a lot of noise over there. All right. Welcome, William, to the Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast. I'm grateful to have you on the recording here today.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. I appreciate the invite, and I'm glad to be here and to share with you guys what's happening.
Yeah. So typically, towards the beginning of the recording, I like to check in with what our 3 circles are. It's a good way to get to know someone really quickly. And before we get to that, I wanted to say that, I know you through the Noon groups where you've been attending. And so I've been grateful to get to know you over the past year here.
Definitely grateful to be back again into the rooms. And, I had a big slip, because my sponsor, who I had for 2.5 years, decided to kill himself. So that threw me on a major sleep, and it took me some years to come back, and now I'm back in the game again, and very grateful to be back in the rooms and getting the recovery that I need.
Yeah, you were away for quite a few years, right?
Oh yeah, I came to SAA. I would say probably about 10 years ago, and got a good run of sobriety for at least 2.5 years, and then after that, my sponsor decided to kill himself, take himself out. I don't know for what reason. I just, that doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
happened. And, the emotional devastation of that gave me an impact, because in my book, he was like, the perfect guy in recovery. And why would someone do that? So that affected me in many aspects. And anyways, so, I decided to come back after almost myself dying or taking myself out as well, which I'll be sharing a little bit afterward.
yeah.
And here I am, back in the horse of recovery.
Yeah, grateful to have you. I'm glad you definitely made it through. So yeah, let's start off with what are your circles? What's in your inner, middle, and outer circles?
Yeah, sure. Let me read them out to you exactly. I sent them to my sponsor. So my inner circle is masturbation to porn, massage places with happy endings, paying for sex with anyone, man or woman, outside of my marriage. My middle circle is masturbation once a day without any type of images, working more than 8 hours, watching movies with semi-adult content, non-pornography, looking at women's body parts, breasts, butts, lips, eyes, looking at magazines with women's bikinis, flirting, not eating at my set times, arguing with my wife, not being intimate sexually or non-sexually with wife, not making time to meditate and pray, not exercising, not attending SAA meetings, not checking in with sponsor and other fellows, not advancing in step work, not writing or reading SAA literature, isolating, not showering. That would be it. Outer circle as well, where we need to focus on, which is working 8 hours, no more than that, because definitely don't want to burn myself out, which I've had in the past. Attending SAA meetings, being intimate with wife, taking a daily shower, meditating and praying at least 30 minutes, which right now I'm up to 45 minutes a day.
Nice.
Daily living the spiritual principles of SAA, exercising, calling and checking in with sponsor, fellowship with wife, immediate family and friends, being rigorous, honest in program, reading SAA literature, writing in my journal, traveling on vacation, being accountable, talking to my spiritual mentor, etc. So that's where my circles are at.
Yeah, man, it's quite impressive. Really good. A lot of it I totally identify with. I've mentioned on the past couple of episodes that we've recorded around personal hygiene, that is a definite middle circle thing for me when I start not showering, not shaving and stuff like that puts me in a dangerous spot. I love the fact that you talked about your work hours. So a few years ago, I was working probably 9 to 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. And I got burnt out so bad, and I really went crazy, and was acting out to relieve the stress and anxiety from working all those hours. And afterwards, I committed to myself that I really need to draw lines in the sand with my work. And occasionally I've had to work Saturdays, and just recently I've been doing it again, but it's been every other Saturday. And that time commitment, oh man, that takes a lot out of you.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that once you have, fallen into various, holes, and have had relapses and, and stuff like that. So you eventually get it, and I've seen what are my triggers, one of the things that this time around has helped me a lot, Jason, is the aspect that I'm also part of another fellowship that is focused on eating. I don't know if we're allowed to talk about other fellowship names, or so I don't know if I can say it, or do we just keep it on SAA?
Yeah, you can refer to it. We won't focus on it, but you can.
Yeah. So I came on board to Overreaders Anonymous. That was something that another addiction that I was able to identify, and that almost took me out, literally. And so being able to have hours of eating, like I eat breakfast at 7, I eat breakfast at 12, I eat breakfast at 5, and I've been abstaining from sugar and refined flour, and just having that discipline has also helped me in my recovery in sexual addiction, because back in the days, I would just go hours and hours without, eating on a timely manner. And then I would just like overeat and stuff myself. And of course, feel guilty and shame and whatever, and then go act out as well sexually. So being able to have a discipline of eating and abstaining myself from certain foods has also helped me in my path to spirituality as well.
Yeah.
Because back in the days, I remember that, I did a lot of meetings. I used the tools of the program, which is, going to meetings. I was even secretary of many meetings and SAA. I even founded some Spanish meetings as well.
Oh, nice.
And, meditation and prayer wasn't like something that I would like really practice, to be honest. And yet I was able to get over 2.5 years in my first run. And now is like having a time of eating, meditation added to that daily, which is, the same way I put a priority to shower that day. It is also in my calendar to meditate. I mean, meditation is not negotiable. It's something that I have to do. Something that I also learned from the pioneers of Alcoholics Anonymous, reading the literature. That was one of the practices that the first 100 members of AA did. The practice of meditation. And that's something that, stuck to me. And I said, well, if it worked for these guys to abstain from alcohol, who are the pioneers of Alcoholics Anonymous, which is where all of us come from.
Yeah, definitely.
Why not, right? Why not? And so, as important as it is to be in the noon meeting every day, or as much as I can, it is very important to me to meditate, because that keeps me grounded, in regards of where I am in my behaviors, in my inner, middle, outer circle, where am I focusing on that day? And I can tell you, man, it's helping me. It's helping me a lot.
Fantastic. A little bit later in our conversation, I'd like to talk about some of the other tools besides meditation that you work in recovery. But before getting to that, I was thinking that we could go over your story. I missed out on most of your first step. I caught the very tail end of it. I was busy at work and couldn't get on. So I would love to hear your story. And I know you're in the Los Angeles area?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah.
So, I mean, I was born in Los Angeles. I'm mixed. My dad, rest in peace, he was white, and I'm from my mom's side, from El Salvador. And at the age of 1, I was taken to El Salvador. I grew up over there with my grandfather and grandmother. And, so growing up was a lot of abandonment issues from dad because, he wasn't around, and mom because she needed to work and provide, and she had her own issues as well, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
Most of us, do come from really, fractured families or dysfunctional families, as they call it. So I grew up, with a mom that had multiple men that used alcohol, and she was a full-blown alcoholic and codependent as well. So I grew up in that environment, and she wasn't really present for me in those, initial years, which are crucial.
Yeah.
So I remember, one guy talking to me and, telling me that if I knew what masturbation was, and I'm like, what is that? And I was probably 6 or 7 years old.
Wow.
What I know, and I didn't have a father figure or a father. I didn't have nobody talk to me about sex. So this guy gave me the idea of how to do it. And man, that was once I experienced the relief and the joy of, practicing masturbation, that became my comforter. When I was feeling lonely, I would masturbate. When I was feeling happy, I would masturbate. When I was feeling angry, I would masturbate. So I use masturbation as my tool for survival, literally, at the age of 7 years old.
Yeah, I definitely can relate to that. Once I had mentioned on some previous episodes that where it came in for me, it was right around the time my parents were divorcing. And so that was my comforter. And once, like you mentioned, when you're feeling happy, when you're feeling angry, when you're feeling sad, when you're feeling stressed, just no matter what emotion, it's always there to be a kind of a soother. And it was great for a long time until it became problematic. But yeah, I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah. So, I mean, that experience, without knowing, I started playing around with, as a little kid, we played hide and seek, and, got involved in touching my one of my sisters, and then my girl cousins as well. And then eventually my, guy cousins as well. And just doing stuff that, in my growing up, I grew up as a Catholic. So the belief of sex is like dirty, bad, ugly, nasty. You're going to hell if you do it. So, one time I remember we got caught by one of my girl cousins. She told on us, and we were, made to kneel in the patio with some grain in top of the grain, and just made to kneel in. And then the whole family got together, and they're like, telling us, what you did was bad. You're going to hell. That's the sin. And I remember all the guilt and the shame of experiencing that, because I mean, imagine the whole family around the patio, looking at us like, like I remember that movie, The Scarlet Letter. Dude, similar to that, bro. Just experiencing that, man, it marked me in many aspects, and it worsened my situation and didn't help. It didn't solve the problem, in the contrary. Now I needed to be more smarter how I acted out.
Yeah.
Because I definitely didn't want to go through that shame and guilt again in the public forum. So, yeah, so that's how I grew up, man. And, just, touching here, touching there, anybody that would allow me. And I remember feeling the excitement, but I couldn't even make out what it was. I just felt that I felt good,
Mm-hmm.
I felt aroused, and of course, that affected my relationship to one of my sisters who I touched, one of my cousins who I touched. I mean, I just don't have a relationship with that because my sexual addiction affects people. Yes, it feels good. There's arousal, but there's also a negative consequence. And one of the things that I realized is that it affects the relationship profoundly. There is no more trust. There is no love, even if it's a family member or a sister or a cousin. And that's something that I have to speak out because, this disease definitely destroys you and destroys people around you. And, at the age of 10, I came back to Los Angeles, and here, while playing with my bicycle, I saw some magazines where I was able to, see body parts like I've never seen. I mean, in El Salvador, for you to get a porn magazine, it literally was impossible for me at that age. But, here it was on the streets, and I was able to see it. And man, oh my God, that threw me off even worse, Then later on, when I was like, I guess 14, 15, some friends introduced me to some video pornography. And back in the days when there was video cassettes.
Yeah.
And man, I became the number one customer of that video store, and I was just going there constantly, man. I went through the whole inventory, if you know what I mean, and spent so much money in that, video store. And to me, going to the video store, bro, was like a kid going to the candy store. That's how excited I was. The new volume, the new movie that came in, and I just couldn't have enough. The more I saw, the more I wanted. And the intrigue of hiding the videos, man, I became a master, secret agent of how to hide stuff, And so that was another phase of my addiction, to eventually progress, because my disease, my addiction is progressive and destructive.
Yeah, you mentioning that brings back a lot of memories for me. Stuff that I rarely talk about nowadays because most of the porn that we talk about is online stuff. But yeah, I used to have a couple of local video stores that I used to go to, and one of them had like a 2-for-1 day, something like that, and I would end up renting like 8 movies at a time. And I had to, you would talk about the kid in the candy store, that I'd just be, I've got this kind, I've got this kind, I need to get something else that fills this void, and just trying to get all sorts of different types, and just being in the store for hours just trying to find the the exact movies, and knowing when new movies were going to be coming in and stuff. And man, that's an area of my life that I haven't thought about in a while, and wow. I definitely relate to that.
Yeah, so like I said, it definitely progressed to the point of later on, eventually having sex. I lost my virginity to a prostitute, someone that I paid. I was around 16 years old, and a friend that I used to work with in the lunch truck, he was the one that connected me to her, because I was pretty young and I didn't have much access to people like that, but he connected me to her. And man, I still remember that experience, and it was a lot of, I was pretty scared, confused, excited, and man, but I liked it. I can't lie, I liked it, and I was hooked. I like, dude, this is what I want. But the problem is that it didn't matter how much I looked for that same experience, I just couldn't get it. I couldn't have it the same way that I experienced that first time. It's like a drug addict, right? When a drug addict experiences cocaine or whatever drug of choice they have, they have that rush, right? That initial experience, and then here we go like a rabbit after the carrot, trying to experience the same intensity, and guess what? It just doesn't happen. But yet here I am looking for that high, and alcohol definitely play a role, and like a gateway drug, as you can say, because alcohol would take out my inhibitions. And I was able to be more social and, be able to explore and be like, in one occasion, I remember I went back to El Salvador and there was like a Christmas environment at that time. And we had gotten very drunk and we slept over a friend's house or, a friend of a friend's house, right? In the morning, I woke up and this guy, he was, acting out with me sexually. And, I felt excited and I liked it at the moment. But afterwards, it was like, oh my God, what did I do? I just acted out with another guy. It's like, and I mean, sex on itself was already a shame and bad and a sin. But to take it to the next level of acting out with another guy, I mean, I crossed the border, and it wasn't the Mexico border, if you know what I mean. I mean, I'm going to hell is what I said. Like, oh my God, and I can't remember. I remember that experience and promising myself I would never, in my wildest dreams, ever do that again. And guess what? The moment I got the chance, once I was, using alcohol again, I was even accepting money from this guy to have sex with him. And that took me to another level. Now I was prostituting myself for money with another guy, And man, it just scaled up and scaled up and scaled up, and the shame, and I felt in many ways that I was the only person in the whole world experiencing this, that nobody else could identify, I could identify with, or I had no support system. I actually didn't, I thought it was just something that, I was just a bad person, I would never imagine that I could be sick or that I was addicted to sex and porn. In my perspective, I was a bad person, and in many cases, I remember, attempting to confess, because I grew up in a Catholic environment. So I tried to be good, bro. And many, many times I tried to go to confession and say what I had done. And then the priest would absolve me. And that same day in the evening, I was already acting out again. And then what do I do the next day? Well, I can't go to the same priest. So now I'm going to a different church looking for another confessor, and I will confess, right? And guess what I do the same day in the evening? I act it out again. So what happens the next day? I'm looking, do I run out of churches to go to confess? And now it's like, what do I do now? I mean, who do I go to? I can't keep on going to the same priest. What are they going to think about me? That I'm a bad person? Because remember, I'm going through the model now, bad and good, not sick and needed recovery. I had no idea I was sick in any way. I was just a bad dude, and I just didn't know what to do or what to make of this. And my addiction, Jason, just progressed and progressed to the point of, eventually acquiring chlamydia, sexually transmitted disease that I actually passed over to my wife. And, her doctor told us that, we needed to, I needed to come into the office and get some medicine because, there's a high probability that we will not be able to have kids because of chlamydia. And sure enough, we've been married, many years now, and we haven't been able to conceive. And we even paid specialists and stuff like that. And I would hate to think that was the reason, imagine if that would be the reason, that I wasn't able to be a father, which is something that any man or any couple desire to have. And because of my acting out, acquiring chlamydia and passing it over to my wife, and now eventually not having kids, I mean, that is definitely something that I heard it in a group, a guy shared that he had transmitted some type of, STD to his wife, and, they had some issues, and And then that made me recall how I also went through that. And, it just hurts me that I decided to have a kid, like any other man would or any couple would. And not to be able to because of my acting out.
Yeah, we tried for several years after we got married. My wife had health issues, which attributed to a lot of it. But, me masturbating nightly, what didn't help out any. So, once we were, it was a kind of a weird thing for us that, the place that we were living in was where I hit bottom. We stayed there for a number of years and then eventually moved out of there to the apartment where we're living now. And within that first month of living in a new environment and kind of shaking off all the old bad vibes from the discovery and everything, that we were able to get pregnant with our one and only, and super grateful for him. But yeah, it took I think 7 years of trying. And I just remember a lot of my fears around intimacy were coming up a lot, especially when it was the act of sex for procreation and not just pleasure. And so it became kind of a task and stuff that I wanted to avoid. But I'm grateful that it worked out, and I hope that something works out for you. And yeah.
I mean, like I said, it's something that is back in my mind that saddens me, but at the same time, I need to be merciful to myself and understand now that I'm sick. But, there's definitely an issue. One of the things that I've discovered as a sex addict is that, I've become very insensible, very neurotic, very self-seeking. I had become very selfish. I had become very a full-blown, workaholic, materialistic, and and all that, all those defects of character and those behaviors. I have no idea how is that after so many years, and my wife and I, we've gone through hell and back to the point of almost divorcing. I've been unfaithful, come as a consequence of vengeance. I think she was also unfaithful to me. But, she had been very merciful towards my unfaithfulness, and I wasn't very faithful. I mean, I wasn't very loyal to her when she was unfaithful. I threw it out of the house and, applied for divorce. I mean, I'm like, I'm the victim now, like, and I just wasn't very embracing, to her unfaithfulness as embracing as she was to my unfaithfulness. And it's all part of those defects of character that I've been able to identify. That, yes, I do have a sexual addiction, and it's not just my sexual addiction that I need to work on once I'm, sober from my sexual addiction. It's also all those defects of character that brought me to that acting out and to made me that ugly human being, that I became. That I can see now working the steps, and working the fourth and fifth step and working the eighth and ninth step. Mm-hmm. I just have to make amends to a friend of mine actually this morning, because I'm working my ninth step right now. Nice. And it was a very dear friend of mine who we got drunk, and, it just became natural for me to ask him once we were drunk that, we would masturbate each other. And, I carried that for so many years. And once again, it affected our relationship. Someone who's a beautiful human being, because of my acting out, I destroyed that relationship. And barely this morning, I was able to make amends to him, and he accepted it. And we're back into communication again,
Beautiful.
And, so definitely I am sick.
Mm-hmm. What was it that made you turn the corner to actually get to the rooms of SAA?
Well, I myself needed to, well, how can I put it? I was introduced to counseling, to substance abuse counseling, and as a profession. So I began to study. I began to educate myself on substance abuse counseling, and one of the requirements to be a good counselor, according to one of my professors, was that I needed myself to go through therapy. And so I began therapy. And in therapy, it just came out, all my sexual acting out. And one of my therapists suggested, I said, "Have you heard of Sex Addicts Anonymous?" And I said, "No." And then he goes, "Well, I definitely see that you can benefit from that." And so the moment that I attended my first meeting, I remember that. It was at Bethel Church here in Los Angeles, noon meeting. That's, again, another noon.
Awesome. Great time.
I'm fond of the noon meetings, as you can see.
Yeah.
And I showed up, and one of my major concerns, because at that time already I was a huge leader in the church and youth minister, and we want to be that holy man publicly, but don't want to expose our secrets, if you know what I mean. And so I was like, man, I hope I don't find anybody that knows me from church. And look what you asked for, because that's exactly what I got. Another brother who was also a preacher and a leader in the church was there.
Wow.
And he had been there for, I don't know, maybe months, or I don't know how long. But anyways, I found him there, like, okay. That was so odd, Jason. You have no idea. I think if somebody was recording me, I probably would have been like like a light, like red, blue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was so embarrassed. It's like, so he didn't say anything, just at the end, he finally got close to me and said, well, so welcome.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what happened? I mean, tell me. So you're a sex addict, right? He goes, yeah, I'm a sex addict. And, started talking. And so, he gave me some more comfort to that. It's okay, right? And so anyways, once I discovered that I was sick and I had an addiction, sexual addiction, I, began to read our book, literature, began to, just getting to the tools, making the phone calls, which initially was very, oh my God, the phone was so heavy. And it's not because, and it's not because it's back in the days, we didn't have the phones we have now, but I'm just saying it. I mean, it was just heavy. I mean, I remember my sponsor, my first sponsor, rest in peace. He said, you need to make phone calls, and I remember many months he would question me, how many phone calls have you made? I go, none. And he just kept on, once again, how many phone calls have you made? None. I mean, it's phone and actually call someone. And I got to tell you that I've been a salesperson, door to door, cold contacts. So I don't have an issue talking to people, or strangers. But there was just something about making a phone call to a total stranger in SAA. Well, no, not a stranger. I knew there was, he was a sex addict, because, I mean, there was a list, right, of people that I would call. Yeah. And oh my God, it was just, I mean, I had so much fear of rejection, fear of, why are you calling me? And I never got that reaction, of course, never. It's like, hey, how you doing? Embracing once I made the phone call. So eventually I was able to surpass that huge, humongous fear. And I was able to use those tools to make that phone call. It was so liberating. And what happened was I created a community of support of people that were sick as me. And so it became a custom now. The daily I would make 2 to 3 phone calls to other fellows, and that helped me in my sobriety, because some days were good, and I would pass that positive energy on to that guy who I was calling, who might have not be as good. And sometimes it was a bad day where I was feeling triggered and I was feeling, that I wanted to act out. And then the other guy passed the message to me. So that fellowship of making phone calls is what, grounded me in my recovery that first time around. And then service, that was another thing my first sponsor made emphasis. You need to be of service, and then working the steps. And oh my God, it was so uncomfortable. I got to tell you, the step that kicked my ass was 4th and 5th, and then the 8th and 9th. Those steps that, oh my God, it took so much time, and I just prolonged it and procrastinated. And my sponsor literally had to tell me, look, if you don't work the steps, I'm going to drop you, like that. I mean, that's what put fire in my butt to oh no, I don't want to lose you. You're my sponsor, because, we began as total strangers, but eventually you become friends, right? Somehow.
Yeah.
And I couldn't even fathom the idea of losing him. So that's how as well, having him kill himself was so devastating to me, because I didn't just lose a sponsor. I lost a good friend. I even get emotional just saying it. It's he knew stuff from me through the 4th and 5th step, and even through the first step, right? Because remember my first run, I never shared my first step in public like I did this time around.
Yeah.
And oh my God, it was so powerful doing it. Because I share with him stuff that even my confessor knew. In detail, right? That I felt so much shame and to share with my confessor, and I was able to share with him. And then this time around, coming into program again, yes, it was uncomfortable and I was nervous, but I was able to share with all of you guys. And this time around is different. I just feel more grounded. I feel ready. I got my ass kicked so many years out of the program that I was convinced. Now I'm convinced. Before I admit it, but it was more psychological. Oh yeah, I am. But then you come to another level, which is not psychological, is spiritual. I don't know if I'm making myself clear. It's more like soul, like your soul wants to recover. It's not just your brain, now it's your soul. And because, when I came to Overeaters, one of the things we do there is a lot of meditation, right? It's a very spiritual program. And I remember trying to meditate, and I couldn't meditate because those pornographic images that I would be using to act out were coming to my forefront. So I wasn't able to meditate as I wanted to. So that's what brought me back to SAA. The desire to want to meditate with a clean mind, not to have those images while meditating. So once I came to the program, guess what? I was able to meditate and don't have those images as I did out of the program. So now I feel right now, Jason, without exaggeration, that I'm touching heaven. I'm experiencing serenity, peace, joy, happiness. It's the perfect marriage for me in my own recovery, and so that's what's happening. I don't know if you have any questions.
I was just going to mention that, when you were talking about the relationship that, sponsor and sponsee have, that connection that we get, the more we go through the step work, the more we get to know each other, and it creates an intimate bond with another human being. Things that we, like you mentioned, that, you would not bring to your confessor at the Catholic Church, so these secrets, but you start to share them with another person, and they know you better than a lot of other people in our lives. So a lot of family members, a lot of best friends. So I can definitely understand when you were talking about that connection that you had with your first sponsor. And so it's not just someone that's in program that you lost. It's an intimate bond that you lost, and that is tragic to hear. And I would just imagine losing a friendship like that. It's not only a mentor, but a close friend. That does have to be devastating. So
No, and let me share with you an anecdote, because when I got my new sponsor, right, I even told him, hey, would you mind being my temporary sponsor? And he goes, why? I mean, I'm available to be your full sponsor. And I go, let's just try it out first, And then afterwards, right, he asked me, once I told him officially, would you mind being my full sponsor? Like, my real sponsor, officially, right? And then he, while we were working through the steps, he asked me, so why did you ask me to be temporary? I go, I wanted to make sure you were not planning to take yourself out.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was just wanted to make sure you wouldn't take yourself out, because I went through it once. I didn't want to go through it again,
Yeah. God.
And we were just laughing our butts off, just talking about it. But I mean, I went through trauma. Basically, that's what it is.
Yeah.
I experienced trauma. I mean, because this is how delicate this work is, yes, we are volunteers when we serve as sponsors, but it's very delicate, what the type of work we do. And so that experience with my first sponsor, has also made me very sensitive to the responsibility when I become a sponsor as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because I definitely want to do the best possible in my own strength, and with the power of my higher power that he gives me to do the best job I can. Not perfect, of course, but just the best. Because and to understand the responsibility that you actually hold to be a sponsor. It's not just the title; it's a responsibility. That's how I understand it.
Yeah. One of the other things that you had mentioned, it comes up time after time after time, people talking about their first experiences walking into the rooms, that fear of knowing somebody. And most times, it never happens, but I do know, now you're another case there. I do know of a few people that have walked in and say, oh shit, there's someone I know. So I wanted to know, what it's like on the other end of that. So we have that fear coming into the program. You're faced with your fear, and then what? We basically survive on the other side of it. It's like, yeah.
It's just now I understand what it is. It's just our ego. It's our ego, our distorted ego that wants to present this persona, this image of a holy man, a man of God, and a good husband or whatever, right? It's just BS, right? And the reality is that, I was dying. I was dying inside. And once you go over that cliff, I once read in a bumper sticker, it said, let God let go. Once you let go and you come into the rooms, and once you take the plunge, I remember back in the days, we would take a plunge into the river, and just a lot of guys were fearful to do it, but once we took the plunges, that's it. It's done. he took the plunge. And today I can tell you, Jason, that taking the plunge, going through those fears of, shit, I might just find someone there. And having had that happen to me, there's nothing wrong. I mean, the guy is also a sex addict. He's also suffering as you are. He's not going to go out and talk about you or whatever, because, I mean, we have the anonymity with it, and that protects us, in many aspects. And what business do I have going out there sharing about, oh, I saw this guy? It's like, doesn't make any sense. But like, once again, it's just the ego. It's that fear that wants to protect itself and use that as a justification not to come into the rooms. But I can tell you this, Jason, that understanding what I suffer from, being a sex addict that I am today, and being in recovery, and experiencing the fruits of that recovery, oh my God, Jason. My wife tells me, I don't know who you are. That's what she said. Because, one of my, how I make amends to my wife, it's through living amends, meaning I do, positive actions every day to make those amends. So what do? I send her a poem. I send her a little message. I love you, baby. I'm missing you. And, I wash the dishes. I throw out the trash. Sometimes I come in from work at whatever time, and then I come from work and I want to sleep, right? And she goes, well, would you take the dog out? Before that would be an issue of argument. This time, yes, my love. Of course I will. And I do it with gladness, because in my mind, I'm making an amends, and I'm being of service. I'm practicing the 12th step, because the 12th step to me is, having had a spiritual awakening is not just in the groups. It's not just being a secretary. It's not just, doing a podcast. It's about being of service even in all my affairs, right? In this case, my wife. And I'm being of service, and I'm making my amends. And she sees me, she hears me, but she can't believe it. It's like, no, it's like, really? Because, I was involved in church trying to be good when I was told I was bad. It didn't work for me. What worked for me, Jason, was understanding that I'm sick and that I need to recover. That I could understand, and that I do. What has worked for me, Jason, is working the 12 steps. Making those immediate amends when, practice the 10th step when shit happens, right? Because shit does happen. Guess what? I have the tools. I understand that I cannot be a person that I get mad and start shouting and saying those mean words. I can't do that anymore. It's not part of who I am. It's not part of my recovery. And if I ever do lose it, guess what? I have the 10th step, and I have to make amends immediately, as soon as I can. I don't have the luxury to go to bed mad or spend weeks and months, because that's gonna send me on a slip like you have no idea. And I love my sobriety. So the steps to me, working them, not just working them, but living them. And being able to identify emotions. Like when shit hits the happen, like recently in the pandemic, I lost like about 15 friends. And, you go through a whole grieving process, right? But guess what? I didn't act out because of those friends dying. I had tools. I had people that I called. I had a pad that I wrote my feelings, and I, cry about the people that I, lost, real dear friends of mine. And, I was able to go to a meeting and talk about that. I was able to, just be able to use those tools, because the tools are there to be used. And when you use them and you apply them, it like we say in our saying, right? It works if you work it. And guess what? If you work it, it works. And, a lot of people tell me, well, how is it that you came back and you're maintaining sobriety? Well, I got my little butt there on noon meetings. I'm there daily. If I'm not there one day, maybe I have something very important to do, but I try to be there almost every day, new meetings, because it works for me because it's during my lunchtime, right? So because I have to eat at a certain hour because of OA. So guess what? I take advantage and I'm eating and I'm in the meeting and that's a tool. That's one of my tools, going to meetings, I hear some people say, oh, I go to a meeting once a week or twice a week. I'm like, I just can't. Maybe once I'm 20 years in sobriety, I may be able to have the luxury to do that. But for now, Jason, guess what? I'm getting my little ass there as daily as if I can.
Yeah.
And,
I started off going to one meeting a week, and having the chronic relapses going on, and it's like, okay, I need to increase. I went to 2 meetings, and then I went to 3 meetings, and 3 meetings held pretty well for a long time. And then once the Zoom thing happened, I was able to do my noon meetings during the workday. I had a couple of evening meetings that I could go to, and then weekend meetings. So I was, there were a couple of days where I really got tired, but I was able to hit 3 or 4 meetings in a day. I didn't really need it, but I had some pressing business that I needed to discuss at the various meetings. So I made it there. And with Zoom, I could actually do this and not have to drive to other places. But yeah, just having the meetings as a tool, another tool in our arsenal, is a definite help.
Yeah, another thing that I do is daily accountability. My sponsor didn't ask me to do that. That is something that I took upon myself, which, I use my notepad in my iPhone, and I'll read to you. I'll read to you what I sent him today, right? For example, I said day in sobriety, 125 days, right? Attended SAA meeting and shared. Slept 7 hours. Eating healthy 3 meals, check, right? Prayed and meditated, check. Co-other fellows, check. Performed chores in the house, check. Took a shower, check. Read SAA literature, check. Worked 12 steps, check. Participated in another 12-step program, check. Worked 8 hours, check. Walked 1 hour in the park, check. So, I just do that in notes, and I, take a picture, of screenshot, and I send that to him. He hasn't asked me to do that. It's just my daily accountability. I'm seeing how many days of sobriety I have. I'm being accountable to someone, and he just responds with the little thumbs or whatever. But I do make a point that during the week I need to call him once or at least twice. Hey, how you doing? I just wanted to let you know this is where I am. This is what's happening in my step work, because basically that's the job of the sponsor to guide you to the step work. And like I said, I'm working step 9, and that tool of being accountable to someone, just that daily discipline, Jason, has helped me so much, because I'm being accountable. Even if he hasn't asked me to, I'm being accountable, because remember, it is my program. It is my button line. I remember one time on, because my sponsor, I call them every day, right? And that's how we agreed with him. And one time he goes, you're doing so good, you don't need to call me every day. I go, bullshit. I said, bullshit. No, I'm calling you, buddy. I'm calling you. If you respond or not, I'm leaving you a message, but I'm calling you. I mean, that daily accountability, Jason, has saved my butt, because for that day, I feel in my soul that I was accountable to someone, which is actually accountable to myself.
Yeah. And, we often talk about this being a 1 day at a time program. So yes. It's like, if you're accountable for that day, that's all you need to be worried about. You don't need to worry about yesterday. You don't need to worry about tomorrow. Just be focused on the day. If you finish that day in a good way, that's one more day of sobriety under your belt.
Yeah. And it's funny, because, if you just focus on that day, because that's, I remember initially when I first came to the program, I would hear some guys, talk about, oh, this is a disease for life, and we're sick for life. And that would depress me. That would just depress me, because I just couldn't fathom the idea of not acting out for the rest of my life. It's like, come on, man, you're taking my candy away from me. I see if it was something so grateful, right? But the idea of just for today, Jason, just for today. I'm not concerned about tomorrow because I don't even know if it's going to happen, or I'm not concerned about what happened in the past because it's already done. But just for today, I'm being of service right now, being here with you.
Definitely.
I'm being of service to someone that's going to hear this audio, right? So that is so powerful just for today,
All right. Well, we're getting pretty close to our time here. Before we go here, was there any other things that you wanted to talk about that we haven't covered?
Well, I definitely don't want to leave this out, that I believe that our higher power, whatever the higher power of your choice is, sometimes the higher power is the group itself, your sponsor, a chair, whatever, right? Well, as long as there's something outside of us, I think that the purpose of the higher power is so us can live a better life. I am experiencing for today a life that I always wanted: congruency, non-sexual intimacy with my wife. These principles that I have adopted has also are affecting my relationships. I had to let go people that I thought were friends and people now that are true friends that they're going through thick and thin with me. And what I can say is to any newcomer, anybody that's new that's listening to this, is that the kind of work we do, it might sound intensive: daily meeting, reading daily, accountability daily. It might sound, it's like someone that goes to the gym, right? It might sound tiresome just to hear somebody talk about going to a gym for 1 hour, 2 hours, and doing push-ups and doing this and doing that. But guess what? The effect, the results that we get from doing this type of work, this activity, it's uncomparable to nothing. I mean, I could tell you this right now: the pleasure, the peace, the serenity, the freedom that I have, it doesn't compare to the level of excitement or worrisome or preoccupation that I experience with acting out. So is it worth it, Jason? Is it worth it working the program? Is it worth it being in this fellowship? 1,000%. What I can tell you is this: take the plunge. We're waiting for you. We love you. We will help you to love you until you learn to love yourself.
That is so awesome. A great way to end this conversation. I really appreciate you jumping on with us and sharing your message, William. It's been a brilliant conversation. I've really enjoyed it. And
thank you, Jay.
I was going to say one thing that when you brought it up, doing the dishes and other things like that, I never thought about that as a living amends, but it is. And I promised my wife that as soon as I'm done, I'm grateful for her for the amount of time that she gives me to do these recordings, because it takes up family time and location in the house. Or it's like I'm going to be recording for about an hour. Need you guys just to stay put for a bit. So I'm grateful for her for giving me the opportunity to do these recordings. But I made her a promise tonight that as soon as I'm done recording, that I will do the laundry. So yeah, that was the way you framed it, is that's a living amends to my wife. And yes, it's just a brilliant way to reframe that. And it makes it feel for me like it's not a burden, but something that I can do to help out and be of service. All right, William, thanks so much for joining us, and I'm grateful for you.
All right, brother. Well, have a good night, okay?
All right, you too, and I'll see you on a new meeting sometime soon.
100%.
All right. See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Many thanks to William for joining me on this week's podcast. It's a really great conversation. So I had shared this information on episode 14 when my friend John talked about suicide. I wanted to share the phone number for the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, and that is 800-273-8255. If you're in a moment of crisis or know someone that is, please feel free and reach out to that number. I was planning to play some music here at the end of the podcast. This week has been quite busy at work and at home. And with the holiday weekend coming up, I've just been slammed with a lot of stuff and didn't quite have enough time to pull audio samples. After one of our meetings this week, we were talking about the music of Stevie Ray Vaughan. And I didn't know this, but he was apparently in recovery right before he died and had written some songs about recovery. Yeah, with the holiday coming up for the 4th of July, at least here in the U.S., I'll be taking some extra time to be with my family and be away from work and relaxing. So next week, I'll probably be making a short episode, most likely on music, and there I'll have extra time to put the audio samples together. So yeah, if you have anything, any music that you would like to share to be on that episode, or if you wanted to share any other feedback about past episodes, you can always email us at feedback@sexaddictsrecoverypod.com. I have a few emails that I got over the past week that I've wanted to share on the podcast, but I wanted to make sure that it was okay to read on air. So I'll be checking up with the people that wrote those emails. This holiday weekend, we're planning on putting the finishing touches on the website as well. So hopefully that will be launched in July. Well, I'm glad you decided to join us this week, and I hope you got something out of the conversation that I had with William. I'm grateful for you listening, and as always, keep coming back. The views and opinions contained in the Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of the Bay Area Intergroup or the ISO of SAA.